This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so even even during the sessions also, every day we'll record the session and we'll share the session with you guys. But don't share it to anyone, okay? Every session will be recorded. Fine. So BODS is nothing but it's a ETL tool, right? BODS is nothing but it's a ETL tool, like extract the data, transform the data, and load the data to target system. Here, any source, like you can use a flat file as a source, or else any database or any SAP application system. When it comes to SAP application, is nothing but SAP ERP system, like S4 HANA, or else if it is go for old system like ECC, we can call it as SAP applications. And also, if you want to read the data from SAP BW, yes, any source system, either it is a database or application system, any system we can read the data, right? We'll read the data and we'll transform the data. Transform in the sense nothing but based on the business rules, based on the functional documents. So in generally, we'll receive the mapping documents to which field you need to map, right? To which field we need to map, and what are the logic we have to implement for a specific column. Those are nothing but transform rules. Okay, based on the transformation rules, we'll apply the logics, and finally we'll load the data to target system. Either it is a flat file, right? We can use as a flat file as a target, we can use as a tables, anything, any source, any target. So BODS is nothing but it's an ETL tool. We'll extract the data, we'll transform the data, and finally we'll load the data to a target system. When it comes to the first section, right? So everybody can be able to see my screen right here. So this is completely admin part. SAP data services overview. So data services introduction. So what is data service introduction and what is the DS architecture? When it comes to the data services basic architecture, it's a very simple architecture. It's not complex. Repository is the centralized object. Okay, repository is the centralized object. Once we have a repository, okay, once we have a repository, then only we can connect to the designer, administrator, metadata reporting, job server, and access server. It means first we should have a repository, right? We should have a repository. So here, let me show you one diagram, the architecture diagram. Amit, your mic is not working, man. Just log off and log in again. Okay, so this is the basic architecture. So here, if you see, the repository is the centralized object. Okay, once we install the BODS, but we won't install that, will be taken care of by the SAP basis team. SAP basis is nothing but admin team. In generally, if you go for any Oracle and all, they will call it as an admin, right? But when it comes to the SAP world, right? When it comes to the SAP world, admin is nothing but basis team. We can call it as a basis person who will do all the configurations, installations, patching, and everything will do, right? Once they install the BODS, first we have to create the repository. Guys, this is a completely admin part. Even if you go and join, yes, Preeti, Amit joined, but his mic is not working. Please ask him to disconnect and connect again. Log off and log in again.
So ask him to, if he is joining from the laptop, ask him to use headphones, because his laptop his laptop setting is changed. That's the reason he's unable.
Exactly.
He need to join from the headphone.
Yeah, Preeti, can you please?
Okay, sure. Thank you. Yeah. I'll inform him. Thank you.
Okay, so this is the completely admin part, guys. See, as a consultant, we are going to keep minimum 3 years or 4 years of experience in BODS, right? As a consultant, as a BODS consultant, you should have a minimum knowledge on admin part, how the background program will work, how we can create the repository. But in the interview point of view, nobody will ask you a question, how we can create a repository, how you can associate with the job server. But as an experienced person, we should have a knowledge. Okay, so that's why I'm explaining this admin part. Okay, here the repository is the centralized object. So once the base system install the BODS, we have to create a repository. Here we have 3 types of repositories. One is a local repository, another one is central repository, another one is profiler repository. What is a local repository? First of all, local repository is nothing but a single user environment, and also we can call it as a development repository. If you want to develop any ETL job, right? If you ETL means extraction, transformation, and loading. If you want to create a job, right? If you want to develop a job, we need a local repository, right? If you want to develop a job, if you want to create a job, we need a local repository. And also, it is a single user environment. Now, we join one small organization. We do not have a base system, proper BODS admin team to configure all these activities. Okay, so they install the BODS and they will ask you, create the repositories. So our team size is now Mohan, Naveen, Amit, and AK, and Videsh. For 5 members, right, we have to create 5 local repositories. If our team size is 10 members, then we have to create 10 local repositories. Every developer will have one unique repository. So that's why we are calling it as single user environment. Even at a time, only one person can log on to the system, but it doesn't mean other person will log off. It should not be like that. Sometimes the repository will be corrupted. Okay, the repository will be corrupted, but always, even in the real time also, when you try to log on, if other person is log on, just ask him, boss, I want to log on this repository, can you please close that repository? Right? It will show you a pop-up window. Some other person log on to the system already. Right? So like that. So local repository is a single user environment. So first of all, if you join any organization, first they will create a local repository and they will assign to you. In some companies, they will create a local repository on your name, right? And some organizations, they will create like, developer 1, developer 2, like that. Okay. So how we can create a repository? Remember, local repository is a development repository. If you want to develop any job, any object, we can call it as, we have to develop within the local repository. And what is central repository? To move the jobs from one environment to other environment. In generally in the software development lifecycle, so we have a development system, quality system, and production system, right? So we have development, quality, and production, right? So to move the jobs from one environment to other environment, from development to quality system, how we can move? So we have different ways like ATL file or XML file, but every tool will have some best practices, right? So SAP best practices to move the jobs from development to quality, central repository is a best practice. Sometimes in the entry point of view, they'll ask a question: can we execute the job? Can we run the job in central repository? No. Central repository is nothing but it's a staging place for to move the job from one environment to other environment, and also version controlling. So we have separate separate session for that, right? Even that is a very important for interview prospect also. They will ask a question how we can move the jobs to central repository. That time we will discuss. First of all, how we can create a repository. So in generally, every ETL tool will have one backend database. We should have one backend database. Not only BODS, if you go for a data stage or Informatica, we should have one backend database. On top of database only, they will install a BODS or Informatica, everything, right? So earlier we were using SQL Server, Oracle, Sybase and all. So nowadays from 4.1 onwards, now current BODS version is 4.2, Service Pack 15 is running. Okay, from 4.1 onwards, we can use HANA as our backend database. Okay, HANA as our backend database also we can use. So guys, remember, in our backend database, we won't do anything. We won't use backend database as a staging area. Just to install, to support BODS application, we should have one backend database. Okay. Now, on top of backend database, once they install BODS, we'll request database team, boss, we have to create a file local repositories, because we were 5 developers. For so and so project perspective, we have to create a file local repositories to develop the jobs. For that, can you please create 5 different users in our backend database? Now, the database people, what they will do is they will create the users. For Anita, 1 user, for Amit, 1 user, Mohan, Naveen, and Vinesh. They will create 5 different users. Once they create the users, we have to log on a repository manager. We'll see how in the regular class how we can create a repository, how we can log on to the repository manager, and what are the information we need to provide. Okay, even the same thing, if you want to create a central repository, yes, we need a unique user in backend database. When it comes to the profiler repository, very old days, some years back, we were using this profiler repository for data profiling. Data profiling is nothing but to check how quality of data we have in the source. Like there was some mandatory field if there was any nulls and all. But nowadays we were using information steward. That is a completely different team who will do this kind of activities. But as a BODS developer, see, in my 11 years of experience, I never used profiler repository. Local repository will develop the jobs, will move the jobs to central repository. Okay, then we'll see how we can create the repositories, either it is a central or profiler or local. Then server managers. Remember, in BODS, we have 2 types of jobs. One is a batch job and another one is a real-time job. Batch job is nothing but scheduled job. Okay, batch job is nothing but scheduled job. Someone has to schedule the job, or else someone has to execute the job manually. Remember, batch job, we have to execute, then only the job will run, or else we can schedule the job, right? So to execute the batch job, we need a job server. The job server should be up and running. Okay, to run the batch job, we need a job server, and the job server should be up and running. Very simple, guys. Sometimes maybe during weekends you will receive some messages or email, but today night we are going to shut down our servers, so cannot do any transactions during that time. Maybe if you are using any Citibank, Access, any bank, it means they are going to down the servers. If server is down, you cannot do any transaction, right? If server is down, you cannot do any transaction. The same way, if job server is down, we cannot run a batch job. Even real time, sometimes yes, the server will be down, then we have to inform our basis team, boss, the job server is down, we cannot execute the job. Then they will restart the servers and they will check why the job server is down. And sometimes during weekends, even in my office also now, tomorrow they're going to down the servers. So they will inform you, boss, this Sunday, so and so time, we are going to, down the servers, don't run the jobs. They'll clearly inform you. Okay, but you have to remember, if you want to execute a batch job, we need a job server. The job server should be up and running. When it comes to the real-time job, we need access server. The access server should be up and running. Then, what is the difference between a batch job and real-time job? As I said, batch job is a scheduled job. Someone has to schedule or someone has to run the job manually. When it comes to the real-time job, let me give you some example how the real-time job will work. For example, our Mohan, having some SBI account, right? SBI account, but he's trying to withdraw money from Access ATM, right? But it doesn't mean The SBI has given the complete SBI customer details, everything with access ATM machine. No, right? Nobody will share, like that, right? Nobody will share, the entire customer details with access ATM. But how the background process running? When there is a request, there will be a response. It means when Mohan requested an amount, the ATM machine will send a request to the SBI database. Then it will verify whether he is having a sufficient balance or not in his account. If yes, then get the response. It will get the response, ATM machine, like, boss, this person is having sufficient balance. Can you please dispense some? That's how the real-time job will work. But it doesn't mean they are using BODS for backend process. Okay, they are using different tools. Just for example, I'm telling. It means when there is a request, there will be a response. But we won't use real-time jobs in BODS. Why? Because BODS is mainly used for huge volume of data, the bulk value. But in the real-time job, hardly will process daily 500 record, 1000 records. We have other tools for real-time process compared to compared to BODS. The XAPI will work very fast in the real-time process. But BOD is mainly used for a batch job to process huge volume of data, some millions of records. Even if you want to read 20 million, means 2 crores records, it won't take much time, right? So that's why always we'll use batch jobs. Even S4 nowadays in the market, every company is having S4 migration projects. How we can migrate the data to S4 system, right? For that also we'll use a batch job, not real-time job. Okay, then we'll see how we can do that. And also every tool will have a capability, right? Every tool will have a capability. One second, guys. Yeah, every tool will have a capability to send an email when there is a failure, right? In generally, you will receive a bank statement, right? In generally, you will receive a bank statement. How we can, every month you will receive some statements, but it doesn't mean somebody employee is sitting in front of the system and he is sending, statement to every person. Automatically, the system will trigger the email. The same way in BODS also we have a capability to send an email notification when there is a failure. For that, we need to configure the SMTP IP address. SMTP means Secured Mail Transfer Protocol. So where we can configure the SMTP IP address. So if you want to send an email, first you should have an email ID, right? So that one. So where we can configure the SMTP IP address and sender information also, we'll see in the regular class. So this section is completed admin part. Nobody will ask you a question, but as a developer, as a consultant, you should have a minimum knowledge on admin part. Then we'll go through the data services designer introduction, like what is the designer components we have, like, what is a project area, what is the local object library, right? What is the designer workspace, and what is the tool palette? What are the options we have in the designer? As I said again, now we are going to keep minimum 2 to 3 years of experience or 4 years of experience in BODS, right? It means you should have complete knowledge on your screen, only single screen. There are no multiple screens, boss. Only we have a single screen where you will do the complete ETL process like extraction, transformation, and loading. Everything we'll do in a single screen, right? That we will see how we can. What are the options we have in the screen, and all we see here. Then DS object hierarchy is nothing but if you want to create a job, we have to follow some hierarchy. Like, first we have to create a project, and the project we have to create a job and a job workflow. In which scenario we have to use a workflow or conditional workflow or while loop. So we have some components are there. So I'll explain what are the hierarchy we have to follow and which scenario we have to use a conditional workflow, right? That kind of things we'll discuss here. Then we'll go to the file formats and data store introduction. File formats means so BODS can able to read the data from flat files, right? So in generally 98% always will use text files. as a source and target. Sometimes we'll use Excel as a source. Text file means not only .txt, either it could be a .csv, .tmp, .dat, anything. Okay, so how we can create the file formats and what are the options we have in the file formats, right? What are the options we have in the file format? In my experience, what are the scenarios have done in my experience with the file format? For example, in source folder, I have 100 files. I have to read all the 100 files records together by using single file format. And if it is a file, if you are using a file as a target, and I want to, in generally, always the target file will be overwrite. But here my requirement is I want to append the data. How you can append the data? And also, sometimes if you want to get the record count from a file, okay, in generally what we will do, if it is a database table, just we'll write select count of start from table. But file, we have to use Windows commands. How to get the record count from a file? This kind of scenarios, whatever the scenarios have come across in my experience, we'll discuss those. We'll create a job, we'll run the job, we'll create some test files, then we'll see. For everything, we'll see one example. We won't tell you on the fly, boss, this will work like that. Okay, we'll go for example, we'll prepare some sample data, and we'll run the data and we'll load the data to target system, either target database or flat file. Then also we'll see the data store introduction. So data store introduction means if you want to connect any third-party system except flat file, except file formats, if you want to connect any third-party system, either it could be a database or application systems, we have to create the data store. How we can create the data store? What are the options we have in the data store? And remember, guys, nowadays we are not working for only English-speaking countries, right? We are not working for only English-speaking countries. We are working for different regions. We are working for Japanese, we are working for Russians, we are working for Chinese. So unfortunately, they are doing their business in their own language because they are not much familiar with the English, so they are doing their business in their own language. Even database will support, SAP will support, even they can see only in their language in the screen also, right? So sometimes when you want to read the Japanese language data, we have to tell to the system, right, boss, I'm reading Japanese data, so keep it as it is. Otherwise it will convert to some bad data, some Cyrillic characters, we can call it as. So how we can avoid such kind of situations, right? So what are the options we have to use? That's and all we'll discuss, even though it is a file format or tables source, that we will see here. Then we'll see DES objects introduction, like what is a workflow, what is a data flow, what is ABAP data flow, what is a conditional workflow. ABAP data flow means in generally SAP language, SAP will understand only ABAP language. So whenever you want to read the data from SAP systems, we have to use ABAP data flow to increase the extraction performance. Okay, to increase the extraction performance, we have to use ABAP data flow. How we can use that? For that, no need to learn ABAP. My BOD system itself, it will generate the ABAP code. If you are using source as a SQL databases, in backend, my BODs will generate a SQL program automatically. Right? So how it will generate, how we can do and all, we'll see here. And which scenario we have to use workflow or conditional workflow, ABAP data flow, while loop and all, we'll see. And then transformations. So majorly, we have to focus on these two, platform and data integrator. So here we have a query transform, merge, case, row generation, SQL, pivot, reverse pivot, table comparison, history preserving, key generation, right? Data transfer transform. We have so many transforms. We'll go through most of the transforms with the examples, how we can read the data, how we can convert based on in which scenario we have to use this transform and which scenario we have to use this transform, right? Such kind of things and all, we'll go through here. See, sorry, we won't use all the transforms together. Based on our business requirements, based on our client requirements only, we'll choose whether we want to use a pivot or reverse pivot. For example, I got some requirement, boss. We have to convert these columns to rows. Then I have to use a pivot. Then rows to columns. I want to convert multiple rows to single row. There is a customer information in my source table. Customer is having multiple lines, multiple rows, like 4 rows. But in target, I want to make it as a single row. Then how we can convert? Well, it depends on the requirement to requirement. We'll use a transform. But remember, guys, only for interview perspective, we have to learn these many transforms. Once you get the job, once you got the job, once you started working on it in real time, 95% always will use only a query transform and functions. Okay, that we will discuss what are the functions and all in the regular classes. Then data services advanced components like variable, parameters, and substitution parameters. What is a variable? Why we need to use a variable? So in the real time, we cannot keep hard code values always. We have to avoid hard code values, and we have to use only parameters or variables. Here, what is a variable? What is a global variable? What is a local variable? What is the difference between a global variable and local variable? And how we can use the variables? Variable is nothing but a placeholder, right? It's a placeholder. Then what is the difference between a global variable and substitution parameter? And these are the interview questions. Okay, so how we can use the variables, how we can create and all, we'll see in the regular class. Then DS built-in functions. Like, as I said, in the real time, 95% always will use only query transform and the column level logics. For example, there is a 10 characters in one of the column. I want only first 5 characters. We have to use a function. And there are 5 characters I'm getting from source. I need to add 5 zeros in front of the value. Then I have to use a function. Right? So we have these many functions, in BODS, and we'll go through each and every function, most of the functions, and I prepared some documents for that. So we'll go through those. I'll share those documents also with you guys, and okay, and I'll explain major functions like lookup, ext, isGroup change, generate on a mobile group. Few functions I'll explain, like if then else and decode. Then we'll go to scripting language, but scripting is nothing but we are not going to write any Java code or .NET. Scripting is nothing but to write a simple SQL statement like select statement. How we can write a select statement in BODS. But in general, if you want to write a select customer name from customer table, but in BODS the syntax will be different. We have to use SQL function. We have to use within the single quotes we have to use data store name, comma. Then within the single quotes we have to write the query. Right? How we can create, write those queries, how we can use Windows commands within the script and all, I'll show here. Even for this also, I have prepared some documentation. Then system and data store configuration. So this is also very important. From development system itself, if you want to point to connect quality system, and I need a flexibility when I run the job for quality, while running, I need to select, if I run the job for development, it has to point to the development system. If I run the job for quality, it has to point to the quality. How we can swap this kind of things, at the point of execution, right? That we will see in system, and this is very important, guys. Even we can call it as a build once, roll out many. For example, we have an iPhone. We are working for iPhone, Apple, and India. They are having 32 different regions. For every state, they are calling that as a region, and we have to read the data and we have to load the data to system. The logic remains same. Database type is same, but connections are different. For Karnataka, we have different connections. For AP, we have different connections. For Telangana, we have different connections. For Maharashtra, we have different connections. So in this case, if we do not have system and data store configuration, what will happen? We have to create 32 jobs. To create 32 jobs means we need 5 developers, 3 months time, Even cost wise also it will go to more than 1.5 crore, the project cost. But we have a system and data store configuration. I have created only one job. When I run the job for AP, it will connect to the AP database. When I run the job for Telangana, it will connect to the Telangana database. At the runtime, I can select. And also, if you want, I can schedule for 32 regions at the same time. At the same time, I can schedule for 32 different regions at the same time. How? We'll see in the regular class. Then debugging, once again, guys. Mama class lo unna chitti grippu. Demo is class lo unna chitti grippu 10 నిమిషాల్లో కాల్ చేస్తాను. సరే అయితే ఓకే సరే నేను చేస్తాను. Then what is debugging? Debugging is nothing but when there is an issue, there is some missing records. Maybe your logic is, whatever the logic you have written that is not working properly. How we can debug the program? How we can debug the program manually or automatically? And we'll see here. Then recovery mechanism. Recovery mechanism is nothing but, when there is a failure, how you can recover your job? How we can avoid a partial data loss? What is automatic recovery and what is a manual recovery? What is a what is a advantage of automatic recovery and disadvantage? The same way manual recovery, that we will see here. Then performance, guys, by default every tool they will have this kind of performance things, right? The same way in BUDs also we have so many questions, right? In the interview point of view also minimum 5 minutes they will talk about performance. So how you can improve the performance? So for example, we are working on a support project, right? We are working on a support project. Every day the job is running half an hour, fine. So all of a sudden the job is running 5 hours. As a technical developer, you have to analyze why my job is taking 5 hours suddenly, all of a sudden, right? How we can analyze and all we'll see. And what are the options we have to improve the performance? Source target table options, push down mechanisms. What is a full push down? What is a partial push down? What is a parallel crossing, right? What are the execution strategies we have? And all we'll see here. Then source based and target based mechanism, like it is nothing but full load and delta load. What is a full load? For example, in my source, we are having 1 lakh records. So I have loaded all the 1 lakh records into my target. Next day, we don't want to read again the same data again. Whatever the data created newly, apart from that 1 lakh, for example, 5,000 to create 5,000 records are created yesterday. Then I have to read only those 5,000 records. I don't want those 1 lakh because I have already loaded into my target, right? So how we can create that logic? Full load, delta load. Even we can something. We can call it as an incremental load. So we have different mechanisms, source based and target based. How we can do that? We'll share. Even by default entry question, SCD type 2. SCD, what is SCD type 1? What is SCD type 2? What is SCD type 3? How we can do SCD type 2 in BUDs by default interview question if you keep 4 years of experience? Like a table comparison, history preserve, key generation. How we can do and all we'll see in the regular class. Then SAP ECC and S4 extraction by using ABAP data flow. So how that ABAP data flow is using, how we can convert, how the background process will run. Okay, how the background process will run and all we'll see here. Like what are the data transfer methods and what is the data ABAP execution methods. How we can generate the ABAP program, how we can upload the ABAP program to SAP systems. No need to write any ABAP program, the system will generate automatically. That we will see here. Then S4 migration. Guys, don't keep this in your project, sorry, in your resume, but we have a knowledge on S4 migration, how we can use IDOC as a target and how we can extract the data and what is the S4 migration framework. If you want to migrate the data from a legacy system to S4 system, what is the framework we have to use? Like extraction, transformation, validation. In validation, again, we'll do 3 types of validation, like mandatory validation, format validation, and lookup validation, and what is a cross-reference table, and what is a check table, how we can use a cross-reference table. Once we load the data, and what is your target, whether you are using IDOC as a target or BAPI as a target, which one will give the good performance, how we can create the IDOC error report. We'll go through this one, but don't keep that. We have extensively worked on IDOC. When you keep that, then the interviewer will ask the question, okay, which objects have been worked? So he will ask a question, which objects? Maybe if somebody friend, some friends he told you like, AR, AP, GL balances. Like AR means accounts receivable, accounts payable, and general ledger balances. If you say these three, then he will ask you, okay, what are the tables involved? How the functionality will work? If you do not have an offsetting account, how it will happen, right? So if there is a tax code, so how you can, if there is no tax code, how you will resolve the issue? They will ask so many questions functionally. Without hands-on experience, even if I tell one or two objects also, you won't understand. That's the reason BODS knowledge plus S4 migration process knowledge is enough to get the job in BODS. Even nowadays, if you know BODS, if you perform at least out of 15 questions, if you say 6 questions, if you answered 6 questions, they'll offer you. They'll give you an offer. Because outside there is a, we have, very shortage on resources. Then we'll go to the release management. Is nothing but again central repository, by using central or central repository, how we can migrate the jobs from one environment to other environment, or else ATL5. Now we'll see here. Then management console. So for example, if you are working on a support project and you do not have a repository access in generally, because it's production system, they won't give you access. But there is some ad hoc request, you have to execute the job. Then we'll go for management console to execute the job. And if you want to schedule, how you can schedule? If you are using a third-party scheduler like Tivoli, Dollar Universe, Autosys, then how we can convert our batch job to executable format, right? How we can convert to executable format like batch file, a Windows batch file or a Linux file. That's and all. Even that is also one of the entry question. That's we'll see in management console. Okay, so this is our complete class. Any questions? Ankita na mi peru? Hello, Anita. Fine. Naveen, do you have any questions? Yes, Anita na Ankita na?
Anita, sir.
Anita. You have any questions, Naima? Do you have any questions?
No, sir, I understood, sir.
Fine, super. Mohan, do you have any questions?
No, sir. Okay.
Okay. Naveen?
Same here, sir.
Naveen?
Sir.
Do you have any questions? You have any questions, Sunaya? Everything is fine.
Everything is good, sir. Fine.
Fine. So see, guys, don't be shy. Okay. So everybody came here to learn something, right? If you have any questions, you can ask me immediately. You stop me and ask a question first. Okay, then only we'll move further. And the class duration is hardly 20 classes. It means 1 month. So maybe weekends will take a break, or else sometimes, weekdays, if I have a lot of work in, late, previous day, maybe it's late night, then I'll cancel next day class, but that will cover in Saturday, Sundays. But every 7 days, out of 7 days, we'll have 5 classes. Okay. Then every day the session will be recorded. The recorded session will be sent to your email, right? Just download it. Whenever I send a video, just download, but don't share with anyone, okay? But and then for some documentations I have, and I share those documents also. Keep it with you. And we'll create one WhatsApp. Yes, sir.
Sir, just like it's a training, okay? So this is class. If you did a class, this is the subject you are covering is a basic or moderate, sir?
It's advanced, sir.
It's advanced.
If you,
Okay.
if you practice whatever subject I have given in the class,
Mm-hmm.
you can crack 5 years of experience. If you keep 5 years in BODs, you can crack the interview. But you have to put the hard work. You have to learn.
Okay.
You have to remember.
Okay. This is the we need a compulsory SAP background on this.
Not required. Not required.
Okay. Not required. It's a ETL tool. And
See,
it's
generally,
working in a SAP.
yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. So we are working in the SAP mechanism in the SAP software.
Yeah, don't call SAP. So always we have to call it SAP.
Sorry, SAP. Okay. Okay. SAP
Always,
in
always
the
SAP.
SAP environment.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.